Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Borth, and in every episode, my goal is to get you to think differently about how money works and ultimately to empower you to take control of your money and your personal financing system. So as we address our financial picture, our financial future, most people think it's a product, but it is truly a process over a product, because that's where everybody wants to sell. Is they want to sell you a financial product and that'll be the solution to all your problems. When in all reality, what we have to look at and we have to understand is that we have to have a process that in order to plug our products, and we have to have a process and we have to have steps to that process. Because if we don't, do we really know what we're doing? That's where this industry, this financial services industry, misses the mark. They're always trying to sell your product, but they don't want to tell you the directions on how to use it. So let's talk about that a little bit today. Reading Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, that there's basically 4 steps to solving your financial problems. The first one is to understand what the problem is, to truly understand what your problem is. And in his book, that problem is that you finance everything you do. The next step that he talks about, and we'll go into these a little bit deeper, is help. You have to accept that you want to make a change. Is the pain of doing what you're currently doing big enough, strong enough that you want to change and have a different result than what everybody else is getting? The next one is to find what that process is, understanding that process and putting it together, implementing it for you. Because there's not a one-size-fits-all process to anybody's financial future. And then the fourth one, and it's really important that we go in this process, is, okay, what are the products that serve our process? What are the products that serve our purpose? And that's probably the last step. And again, really structure the whole life to solve a lot of the problems that Nelson Nash talked about in his book. But at the end of the day, you have to go through that process in that order, right? You have to understand what the problem is. What are you trying to solve? Because if you don't know what you're trying to solve, how good, what good is anything you're going to buy and implement? And you have to accept the fact that you want to make a change, because if you don't have that desire to make a change, then what difference does it make? Do you want the same result that everybody else is getting and nobody's happy with? So think about that. Do you want to accept the same results that everybody's getting and nobody's happy with? And if you're okay with that, then you probably don't want to accept any help. You don't want to accept any change in your life, because the pain of what you're doing isn't big enough. You want to change your habits and change those things in your life to make some long-term impact on that. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper. The first, identify your why, right? So this is the big one. Simon Sinek wrote in his book, Your Why. Because if you don't know why you're doing something, you don't know your purpose, then at the end of the day, how do you know where you want to get to? My why was very, very well laid out to me, in the sense that I wanted to be in control of the banking function of my life. When the banks told me one day that, hey, Wade, you can't get a loan to do what you want, even though I had plenty of money, plenty of good credit, everything was good for me, and they're the one in control. So in your business, in your personal life, ask yourself, who's in control? Are you truly in control of your business? If you have to go to the bank and they decide if you're going to get something or not, if they're going to give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, who's truly in control of your business and your life? I want to be in control of my life. That's my why for this financial product or this financial process that we're talking about. But we have to work, you have to work with us. You can choose to work with us to help you figure out what that why is. Why do you want to make a change? What's important to you? Do you want to have this generational wealth passed on to your kids, grandkids, this knowledge of how to use money, how the banking system works, so they're not financially captive the rest of their life? If that's important to you, we'd love to have that conversation. Then we have to ask the question, what's working and what's not working? Both of them are great questions, because if we find things that are working, why not continue those things? If we find things that aren't working, we have to ask the question, why? Why are we still doing those things? Are we doing it out of habit, out of muscle memory? And then do we want to break those bonds? Do we want to break that bondage of things that aren't working? The next, the step 3 is, how much is your current strategy costing you? And this is a real big, because most people think, oh, it's not costing me anything. I'm saving money, I'm putting money away. But it's the unseen that we have to be aware of. And the unseen of a financial cost are fees, expenses, taxes in the future, lost opportunity cost. These are all things that can cost you that you're not aware of. So it's not your upfront cost that's so important. It's really the unseen cost, right? So are we providing you an asset, or are we having a mindset that said we're going to go out and get an asset that can give us cash flow for the rest of our life? Or are we putting money away in like a 401k or an IRA when it gets to a certain point in life where we have to consume it. Well, when you go to a consumer mindset, a consumption mindset, that's a very limiting mindset. Wouldn't it be much better if we had an asset that could give you cash flow that you know is going to be there, and we can use that for the rest of your life, so you don't have to worry about running out of money? So think about that from the standpoint of it's not always the upfront cost, because that's where a lot of people think, oh, I know what the cost is because I know what it cost me to get into it. I know what the upfront fee is. Again, it's the unseen cost that is really the expensive cost. So we want to analyze that. We want to have a discussion around that. Because if people know what's going on, they'll know what to do. I've heard this said many times. Again, if people know what's going on, they'll know what to do. A lot of the information in the financial industry doesn't tell you the whole story. They don't tell you what's going on. They tell you the side of the story that works well for them and that you hear and want to grab onto, but they don't tell you the rest of the story. So in my life, I was told a half truth is just as much as a lie is a lie. And so we want to understand what's going on. We want to understand the process, because this is about you taking control of your financial picture. In Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, he calls becoming your own banker, because he doesn't say, here's Wade becoming your banker. Because we don't want to trade Wells Fargo for Wade Borth. We want you to become your own banker. We want you to take control. We want you to be the person that is ultimately responsible and the person that's making the calls on these things. Now, sometimes it's really easy to give that away to somebody else and let them be responsible. But then at the end of the day, when things don't work out, we can blame them, but we're still in a boat that doesn't fit who we want to be. We're still in a position that doesn't suit what our values are, our why. So going back to that why. And then once you identify your why, figure out what's working, what's not working. And then, that third step is, what your current strategy is costing you, and what's really going on, so you know what to do. We want to develop a customized strategy. And this is the key part of this, is that, again, it's about you taking control of your financial future. It's not me telling you what to do. It's taking your values, taking the fact that you want to have change, you need some help, and you want to put a process in your life that's going to make that big change in your life, and then ultimately finding the products that fit those things that you want to do, and not reverse it, because that's what the industry does. They say, here's your product, now you go figure out how this is why. And it should be the exact opposite. What is your why? What's the process? And here's a product that fits in there. And then at the end of the day, then it comes back down to, we have to have a discussion. Again, understanding your why. That might change a little bit as we get older. It always does. My why at 35 was a whole lot different than my why at 55. But it's not that drastically different, because again, I want to make this generational impact into the future. So I want to teach. I want people to understand the process and understand what's going on in my life and my values. I want to pass that on to my, hopefully, grandkids, great-grandkids. I want to be that person that the picture's up on the wall and said, all this is possible because he made a change. He decided that he was going to do something different, and they're pointing out a picture of me. And so hopefully that's over the next generations. But that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen in the first generation. That happens in multiple generations. And that happens by passing knowledge along with money and understanding of what's going on. So it's implementation and monitoring, not necessarily even through your life, but through all those generations' life. So hopefully we can start this generational process of getting people out of that bondage of kind of just information that's being pumped out to us and as being true, when in all reality, it's probably not serving us very well. It's serving the masses, but you're not the masses. You're the individual that has to live with those decisions. So let's have that discussion. Give me a call, reach out to us, email us, and about what your values are. And then at the end of the day, implement in order to make that happen. But we have to change our mindset more along the lines of take control of my future versus giving it to somebody else to have them be in control. So again, reach out to us, call us, email us. Glad to have that conversation. If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.